to meet with, does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or are you
No.
Are you hoping for...
Так не делается это. Слушай, я пришел, сказал, 50 дней дал.
Да, он хочет
Слушай,
быстро.
он должен всегда понимать, что его могут послать на...
И так и делает Путин, посылает его.
Ну, пока не посылает, но может послать.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is August 8th, 2025. It is Friday, and what you see in the beginning, essentially what we're going to be discussing here, but the some revelations, so to speak, came from the, well, unexpected localities, if you wish. When Mr. Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, he openly states, and I translated to you when he gave the interview to the Time magazine yesterday, that Mr. Trump should keep in mind that he could be sent to pound sand, or speaking in a more, he didn't use this, but it was essentially going to F off, you know. And so this is essentially the background of this whole situation, which everybody is excited about. They say possible, they are preparing it, possibly next week, meeting between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin. And this is in regards not just only to the Ukrainian conflict or special military operation. It's, as always, what Russia wanted to essentially speak about the larger framework of the strategic stability. And the situation is very well known, what is happening on the ground, and as was stated so many times before, you know, Russians' demands are pretty much unchanged. And fact is, the only thing which changes there, implicitly of course, is this phrase which means what about the consideration of the realities on the ground, because realities on the ground change all the time, and some competent people in Pentagon, as I already stating many times on many occasions, it's one of the last vestiges of any kind of the professional competence in the United States left. They understood what is coming, and before we go any further discussing why Mr. Ushakov will talk about how it was worded, because it is absolutely critical in how Mr. Ushakov, Mr. Putin's aide, worded the whole situation. But let's take a look at something which is, well, what is happening on the ground. And we go first to the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine for today. As you can see yourself, their pattern, basically repeats itself constantly. We have it around each day, around 1,300 killed. It's primarily killed, and you can see yourself the numbers are just ticking up, you know. So what can I say? It continues. And now if you take a look at what is happening, we go to Mr. Popov, Colonel Popov and Marat Khairulin with this map, and this is the map of the Kharkov Oblast, essentially, which you can see yourself. This is how what is called the bridgeheads look like for Russians in the Kharkov Oblast, and they are all in the red. And these are, for example, one of those things which are mentioned when we use and remind everybody about the same phrase about consideration of the realities on the ground. These are realities on the ground in this particular case in Kharkov Oblast, and then will change and will continue to change with the movement towards the west, towards Kharkov, and how far Russians are willing to go, we don't know, and I hate to speculate on this because obviously I do not have access to all those morning briefs of the general staff, to the chief of the general staff. So it's, well, what can I say? And this is not just about, you know, the whole situation with the summit. It's also about how it was stated. Here's Mr. Ushakov, and he speaks about it live to the correspondence of one of the Russian TV channels. But here is Ushakov how he worded it. U.S. has made acceptable offer. Fact is, it's not even full phrase. In reality, he spoke about that United States made the offer which seems acceptable to Russia. And so he talks about, speaking to reporters on Thursday, Ushakov commented on the talks between Witkoff and Russian President Vladimir Putin, noting that Moscow has received a proposal from the Americans, which it is ready to consider without providing further details. And here we have the, this news about that, Putin said, we can meet. They looks like they already accepted the place where they will meet. People say that it could be United Arab Emirates. Who knows? So, and Emir of UAE was visiting Moscow precisely this day. So, and when we consider everything in terms of realities on the ground, we begin suddenly to get all this, oh my God, butthurt and sour grapes, and we go to the Neocon Central. And again, many people still do not understand that once you get into any kind of this establishment journalism in the United States or in the West in general, they still talk about optics. Well, optics is the only thing which United States can do and combined West. But before we go there, I want to stress, remember what had happened 4 days ago. Many people still do not understand how this suddenly came about, why Mr. Witkoff went and saw, and went to Moscow, and then suddenly they have what you would kind of term the breakthrough, if you wish. It's not really breakthrough. United States and Russia were communicating to each other behind the closed doors for a while now, which is good. I always stress it. This is good. Talking is good. But it's the fact that Russian Foreign Ministry issued their memorandum about the fact that when the United States abrogated the treaty on the intermediate range nuclear forces, Russians, waited and kept it going for a while. And then 4 days ago, Russian Foreign Ministry comes up with this memorandum, if you wish, or statement, and says that Russia is unbound by all those treaty limitations, and that means what? Done, cease and desist, and we are not going to play this game anymore. And of course, as the result, what we have Oreshnik is being deployed to the front line, and it is being in the serial production for a while. And we have other types of the weapons, which, it's not like they say, oh, it may shift. The balance has shifted long time ago. It shifted in 2018 and even earlier. And this is what I call always the real revolution in military affairs, and Russia was leading this revolution, and as a result it achieved the escalation dominance which United States couldn't even conceive, even in its halcyon days when it thought that it is the greatest power on earth. It wasn't really, but it was definitely great power, no doubt about it. But there's nothing comparable in history when one country makes the technological breakthrough, which is so massive and so, leaves everybody behind so far away that, at some point of time you have to consider that, this is unprecedented historically. And this is what happened. This is what also is the impetus to all those things which are happening now around and revolving around this event, which we all anticipate anxiously and to see what's going to happen. And so here is the Neocon Central, Newsweek. And look what Newsweek begins to, they cry, poor babies. So they talk about that. You see, these people do not understand. They do not understand Russia. They lie all times, about everything which is related to the foreign policy, or rather lack thereof, of the United States. And they say that U.S.-Russia peace deal proposed, huge win for Putin. Report. It's published today, and you may say, what kind of report they are talking about? Obviously, they are talking about Bloomberg. And Bloomberg, well, they are as reliable as I am Chinese, So, and however, they kind of elaborate, and these are the things which we're beginning to get from all sides, and those are primarily media people. And do not forget, I want to stress, what we're talking about is not actual anything. It's just speculation, but I have to also respond to those speculation, pointing out that they are speculations. And they talk about that the deal would mean Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky giving up the entire eastern Donbass, Crimea, and parts of Lugansk and Donetsk where fighting is still raging, unnamed sources told Bloomberg. Okay, I don't know who are those unnamed sources, and we understand that actually the issue of the maintaining the state secrets in the United States, how to put it polite, it's the third world. Everybody snitches on each other and everybody leaks anything they can, possibly. And so, but truth is, yes, it goes without saying, those are 4 regions, we're not even talking about Crimea, they are part of Russian Federation per constitution, and there's no even discussion of it, despite the fact that Mr. Rubio says that, oh yeah, everybody has to make concessions. No, only Ukraine will be making concessions, and this is neither United States nor Ukraine are in any position to dictate any kind of the conditions. So, but as I already stated, one of the reasons, one of the kind of driving forces behind all of that was the fact that Russians had it with Europe, and yes, whatever will be left behind the closed doors, which will never be told what actually is being bargained about, I would say with a very high degree of probability that the deployment of the latest delivery systems is one of the major factors contributing to sudden, United States recognition of some strategic realities there. And so they say, why it matters, Newsweek, if confirmed, such a deal would represent a huge win for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who launched and Ukraine has not agreed to the proposed deal. Bloomberg reported Putin and President Donald Trump are expected to meet for talks next week. Nobody asks Ukraine about anything. Ukraine is merely a tool. It was a ram used by incompetent and downright idiotic people in Washington to launch, it against Russia, and expecting the strategic outcomes which even children in the kindergarten won't expect, because they have more common sense and knowledge of the real warfare and actually the correlation of forces and means, including on the grand strategic level of states, that means their economies and things of this nature. But they thought that, their delusions, their, wishful thinking somehow should materialize into defeat of Russia, splitting it in whatever, overthrowing this Putin's regime and things of this nature. You cannot fix stupid. Washington and Europe are stupid. That is why I constantly repeat, and again, if you read attentively the first chapter of my latest book, which already a year old, more than a year old, it is all about this echo chamber. There are a bunch of nincompoops who basically convince themselves that they are so powerful and so amazing, and then they run into this brick wall, and then suddenly they sit in the shell-shocked, and trying to figure out what had happened. Nothing. You just encountered the real war, and you encountered the country which is the best in history on fighting wars, period. I mean, Russian military history just dwarfs anything out there in terms of continental warfare. And so when you look at this, you have to understand that how about you follow this famous Sun Tzu dictum, the second part of it, not know your enemy, thy enemy, know thyself. West doesn't know itself. It is absolutely not what it portrayed itself. But again, they drank their own Kool-Aid, and of course they have been shaped and framed by the Ukrainian propaganda and a Zionist lobby, which also has a lot of scores to settle with Russia. So as the result, what can I say? New York Times also kind of writes about this, that for some reason they think that meeting with Mr. Trump would be something of another minor victory for Mr. Putin, who had been largely isolated by NATO leaders. New York Times and their cretins who write this garbage, which they produce non-stop, have to really look up who is being isolated and how United States is turning into it's already turned into the rock and pariah nation. And this also becomes extremely kind of pronounced. If you look attentively at the overall the developments on the front, and to the point that, as Mr. Lukashenko correctly stated about Mr. Trump and given his interview to Time magazine or the Times, I don't care, whatever, Time something, that yeah, he could be sent, to pound sand, or rather to be told to F off. And even Telegraph, oh yeah, Telegraph, yeah, another British rag, which said, Trump abandons plans for three-way talks with Putin and Zelensky. Donald Trump has said he is open to meeting Vladimir Putin without Vladimir Zelensky, abandoning an earlier pledge that he would only engage in three-way peace talks. Well, he can engage in three ways whatever he wants. He'll have to ask Melania, of course. But the point is that there was never, this idea was so stupid and it was so incompetent that I don't even know how to describe it, why those people lived completely in this world of fantasy. I need to right now play the Earth, Wind and Fire, immortal masterpiece fantasy, and because this is what they are. They live in the fantasy. This is what they do as the so-called statesman, which none of them is. And so for some reason they think that he can dictate conditions for the side which actually won it. And we've been on it for a while, and just that, as I already stated, the critical mass have been reached, and suddenly they understood they better run now, because after that, yeah. So, but let's leave it for now, so to speak, away from our main conversation here. And as when New York Times says that for some reason Russia was isolated by NATO, really. So here's Reuters. It talks about that, yeah, it's about those tariffs, and obviously August 8th, as you can see yourself, and they talk about that Trump's tariffs which he imposes on India could strain U.S.-India-China relations, and experts doubt tariffs will change Putin's stance. As already have been stated many times, Russia is practically completely insulated from effects of the sanctions. It might get, hurt some here and there, a little bit teeny-weeny, which is not strategic, not even operational, more tactical type thing, hurts, so to speak, hurled at Russia by those people in Washington who do not understand evidently what real economy is. But even Reuters admits that essentially, yeah, that's not going to hurt Russians. I mean, it's not going to change anything because Russia is more than ever is prepared to continue the war. And so it is definitely now something, as I already stated, ticked inside, so to speak, or clicked inside their brains in Washington, D.C. that they better run now while they can. And some people, obviously, I understand there was a lot of hysteria. Oh, yeah, Putin is actually, surrendering. And those people who write those things and react like this, they better update themselves, or rather not update. How about they start with class 0 or grade 0 and work their way up in understanding how international relations and balance of power is formed and how people operate on the level, especially of the superpowers, of which I speak now for the second decade, that United States and Russia are bound to talking to each other. They must talk, because how these two go, the rest of the world goes. And this is very simple. These are two nuclear superpowers, and they better, iron something out between themselves to, modus vivendi, if you wish, or something like this, that we are not basically thrown into the horrible situation of the World War III being unleashed on the unsuspecting, or rather suspecting world. So it is good. And it's good that Mr. Putin also informed Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Modi and Mr. Lula about the whole situation. After all, it is a BRICS matter too. And so we'll see what comes out of it. And but it's not only the whole thing. It's not only the whole story. And what needs to be kept in mind that Mr. Trump, apart from the Epstein files, guess what? it's a good, diversionary action or basically shifting the focus of the public for a while, at least, away from Epstein files, Epstein scandal, and Gaza genocide committed by the actual masters of the United States, which are in Israel. Well, you know what? At least he can say that, oh, you see, I delivered on something. Of course, it's pure PR, it's pure BS, and then again, we do not know if those negotiations will be in any way successful in the final outcome. So, but at least this shifts focus. And then there are other things which are happening, and we have to keep this in mind because this is also important. And I want to say here that, and I understand there will be some people who will just go and say, yeah, you know what, you are imperialist or something like that. No, I just know that when you are such countries as Russia, China, India, or United States, you are, by the virtue of your gravity, economic, cultural, military, you obviously, you know what, you affect other, what people call it limitrophs, but you affect those countries which are near you and are not as powerful. And how to put it? We saw, obviously, the situation which today is, in 2008, on the 8th of August, there, which is deep state, essentially, American deep state, unleashed war using Georgia as essentially the ram against Ossetia. And you know how it all ended up. Mr. Saakashvili was eating his tie, and Georgia was broken up. And it was the result which, demonstrated for the first time all those tactical, operational concepts of the Georgian army, which was trained by Israel, United States, and Ukraine, didn't work out that well for them. In 5 days, Russians just basically demolished it. And this was before the transformation was already happening. Then it just accelerated after that in terms of Russia basically, putting the pedal to the metal in terms of the rearmament and reorganization of the armed forces. And we know the result today. But it's not that important in terms of that it was the deep state. We know that it was, which late John McCain wanted this war to win his elections because obviously Obama was leading him in every single poll. No, it's not only that. We have to keep in mind that in the end, Russia had to go there. Now let me show you something, and we can discuss about this, and many people will not like what I'm about to say. Here it is. New York Times reports that Trump directs military to target foreign drug cartels. The president has ordered the Pentagon to use the armed forces to carry out what in the past was considered law enforcement. And why this is important. So look what New York Times elaborate on that. So they talk about that the decision to bring the American military into the fight is the most aggressive step so far in the administration's escalating campaign against the cartels. It signals Mr. Trump's continued willingness to use military force to carry out what has primarily been considered a law enforcement responsibility to curb the flow of fentanyl and other illegal drugs. The order provides an official basis for the possibility of the direct military operations at sea and on foreign soil against cartels. People will say, okay, if you support this, you Trump, you imperialist, you all kinds of the nasty people. Well, let me tell you one thing. The situation with the drugs in the United States is catastrophic. And we also have the penetration of the cartels and gangs all over the United States. And can Trump really do something about this militarily, about those cartels? Well, I have news for some people. It's not going to be law enforcement anymore because cartels and their forces represent today, for all intents and purposes, nothing more but the terrorist armies. They are, well, especially after the what is happening in Ukraine, they obtain a lot of all those, fancy weapons, and they operate their essentially private armies, which are armed and trained. Well, obviously they're not trained like all those Colombian, drug cartel dudes who go and fight in Ukraine and then, of course, have the floor wiped with them. But they are still essentially paramilitary, if not downright military forces, which operate, some of them operate even the heavy equipment, heavy weapon systems, including air defense complexes and, all kinds of the armor and things of this nature. So, can the United States strike them? Theoretically, it can. United States has the best satellite constellation, and this is precisely what you need. Your actually targeting and recon capabilities when you have the, what United States has at its disposal. And could it be that United States will target actually the layers of those cartels in Mexico elsewhere? Very well could be the case. So I'm talking about that it is not only, you cannot do this by law enforcement alone. Essentially what you have when you put the law enforcement against those people, it's uneven playing field. And in this case it becomes, well, guess what? What Russians used to do in Caucasus and in Chechnya, for example, which was called anti-terrorist operation. Guess what? It was full-blown military troops operation. So it doesn't mean that the United States will necessarily deploy ground forces, but the United States has enough strike capability to really make life miserable for cartels and their leaders. And what they will be doing now, obviously, they will be trying to, after this, has seen the light of the day, this information, this statement, if you wish, of policy on Trump's part, it's going to be a serious issue for them. Because obviously, cartels do not have early warning systems. And the United States is capable to launch, for example, Tomahawks or even JASSMs, and they will fly. They will not be registered even in Mexican, for example, airspace, and they can strike, surprisingly fast, relatively fast, against the targets which are, controlled by cartels, including their leadership. So will I basically cry about the leadership of cartels? No. Those people, they commit crimes. Simple as that, and they commit essentially what amounts to terrorism. It is pharmacological terrorism, if you wish, but this is what it is, and it's a serious national security issue for the United States. How it could be handled, of course, or will be handled, that's the whole other story, of course. And but I'm not surprised that Trump decided to do this, because anybody before him who were trying to say that, oh, it's law enforcement, well, I have news for you. At some point of time, they will corrupt everything along the border because they have money and they have the ability to blackmail people, kill them, including on the territory of the United States. And yeah, at some point of time, the critical mass, as I already stated, it reaches the critical mass and it stops being just merely law enforcement issue. It becomes critical national security issue, which requires a completely different means to resolve it. Could strikes deep into the cartel's territory provide some kind of the change of the strategic outlook? Absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody loves to have, Tomahawk land attack missile landing on your layer. And, that's also the good way of considering how they deploy to kill a lot of them, so, and we'll see where it all goes, but I can only say that I totally foreseen and totally anticipated that this development, because it is the only way to deal with this. And if you, again, counter-terrorist or anti-terrorist operations which were conducted by Russians, they involved all kinds of things of this nature too. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you guys today, because it's Friday, so I do not want to make it too heavy on you. So, and as always, in the end, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. I would really appreciate that. So, guys, have a nice weekend ahead of you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.